Hello everyone, welcome to the Buzz the Prey Manga. Today we continue the latest Global Freeze chapter, rewritten and edited by me in English for a smooth reading experience. All visuals and story flow are personally edited to give you the best manga style storytelling. Support the original creator by checking the official manga. So let's dive right into the today's chapter.
Chapter 2940. One half a year passed in the blink of an eye. The information Zhang Yi gave them consisted of two parts. One was a record from the Japanese, and the other was data from an AI. Of course, the details are very detailed because even in the records of the ropeway, the descriptions of the depths of the starry sky corridor are rather vague. This is why Zhang Yi never considered traveling with Bai Long and the others. However, he still pointed out the way for people of all races and gave some reminders on how to avoid risks. Of course, according to the information obtained there are many similar experimental sites along the subsequent routes. Moreover, the closer you get to the depths, the larger the scale becomes, and the more perverse the content of the experiments becomes. You may encounter many very powerful man-made objects. Zhang Yi naturally marked the dangerous planets they would encounter along the way for Kim and his companions. Zhang Yi still kindly reminded them, "This is just an old map. You still need to be very careful on the path ahead." Upon hearing this, Manchi frowned immediately. "What do you mean? Are you trying to fool us with something outdated?" Zhang Yi shook his head. "Means this. I just want to remind you not to forget that the combined fleet of the 6 super races is leading the way. Wherever they go, everything is smashed to pieces. For example, this experimental planet, if it was because they shattered the planet and released those wild puppets, they would have fallen here. So, everything that follows may be exactly as imagined. Who knows what kind of demons and monsters they might unleash? You'd better be careful." After Zhang Yi's reminder, everyone fell silent. "All right, everything that needed to be explained has been explained. Now, everyone, let's leave." The surrounding Type 1 wild golems have been mostly cleared out. However, it's hard to guarantee that there aren't many of these creatures still alive outside. After all, their resilience is incredibly strong. However, Zhang Yi already has ways to deal with this. By simply transplanting the hyperdimensional cube onto the dreamer, a guiding signal can be released to lure away all those absurd puppets. Of course, by speaking about this openly, he made it a way for people from all ethnic groups to feel indebted to him, which made them feel a little better. Zhang Yi took out the dreamer and put Lu Karen and Yang Xinxin in charge of operating it. Soon, the hyperdimensional cube connected to the dreamer's machine began to release inductive signals, just as a super brain had finally acquired a body. Sure enough, when that signal was released, it gave all the wild puppet a wrong understanding. That's telling them that there are even more delicious prey in the distance. So those wild puppets began to move towards the other side of the planet. Zhang Yi and the others confirmed their positions. "If you want to leave the planet from here, the shortest route is through the gap that was previously broken by the White Dragon and his group. This will take a little time to do, but without any external threats, they don't mind going through the trouble." As a result, a large number of mechanical engineering troops began to operate. The various ethnic groups worked in perfect unison, beginning to harvest the metal materials that formed the experimental field throughout the entire area. These are all cutting-edge technological products of the Star Clan. They are used to create cages that conceal powerful aliens. After a busy half-day, Zhang Yi and his team finally cleared a passage. The dreamer set sail, heading into the depths of space. Zhang Yi opened the rope record in his hand and carefully examined the fragmentary information left behind by the Japanese. According to the records of the gods, the true core area of the Star Clan is located deeper within the Star Corridor. Zhang Yi looked up at the vast universe. That enormous star was comparable to a small galaxy. Moreover, everything they saw along the way showed no signs of destruction, as if the entire tribe had vanished into thin air overnight. Zhang Yi began to consider a possibility. So how exactly did the Star Clan disappear? Was it really as rumored that he was actively eliminated by Gawu? He once imagined that the Star Clan was wiped out by their own creations, such as those desolate puppets. However, it seems that the Star Clan still has a very low level of control over them. So, what is the truth behind the extermination of this ethnic group? Zhang Yi shook his head, having thought it through in a moment. However, he still addressed everyone through the entire warship's communication channel. You all need to be careful from now on. Don't just pick up anything on the warship. We need to get through this chaotic area as quickly as possible and reunite with Bai Long and the others. Now they have basically achieved their goal. Once they successfully return to Earth, they can use the evidence they have to punish the 4 major races that initiated the attack. Although he was the culprit, Zhang Yi only killed 2 of them. But there are still 2 guys alive, and we'll definitely find them and kill them all eventually. As for their ethnic groups, they should either be exiled or subjected to severe financial hardship. At this time, Zhang Yi also knew that Rant of the Candle Demon clan had died at the hands of the Type 2 wild puppet. As for the last member of the assassin group, the Space Master Barnet of the Nor tribe, his whereabouts are unknown. Zhang Yi shook his head and continued to think about these questions. Like a star, the dreamer shines and traverses the universe, constantly moving towards deeper reaches. There are very few stars in the universe, but each star is an important coordinate and base for the dreamer. They carefully avoided all known areas, fearing further entanglement with anything auspicious. Time flies, and half a year has already passed. As Zhang Yi and his companions walked along the starry sky corridor, they felt as if there were no sun or moon in the mountains. Over time, they even forgot that they were traveling in space. But at this moment, the Earth continued to revolve steadily around the sun, as if nothing had happened. In the office of the Supreme Commander at the Jinling headquarters of the Jiangnan region in Huashu Kingdom, Zhu Zheng was wearing a black silk nightgown and lying on the sofa. His hair is now completely white. More than a decade has passed since the apocalypse, yet he seems to have aged several decades. Although he is able to enjoy the most comfortable life, he still needs to do some manual labor. But over the years, the pressure in his heart has never lessened. One source of pressure is Zhang Yi. As Zhang Yi grew stronger, no one in the entire Huashu Kingdom could suppress his power. And Tianhai City, which he governs, happens to be within the sphere of influence of the Jiangnan region. Therefore, he, as the Supreme Commander, became powerful but powerless. Chapter 2942 Old Grudges Now. Zhang Yi has firmly grasped the armed control of the entire Jiangnan district, or even the control of the entire region. As for Zhu Jing now, he's more like a high-level employee. This loss of authority gradually made him anxious. In just over a decade, he almost turned into an old man in his twilight years. With a creak, the door opened. Secretary Lan Xinqing walked in and said respectfully, "Commander Zhu, your latest donor has been found. When would you like to schedule the surgery?" Zhu Jing took a hot towel from the maid beside him, wiped his face vigorously, and then asked casually, "How is the donor this time? How old is he?" He pointed at Lan Xinqing. "You have to handle this matter with your heart. If you have to change, then only change to the freshest donor. You need to understand that your position in Blizzard City will only be secure as long as you are alive. Without you, you are nothing." Lan Xinqing has been by Zhu Zheng's side for so many years and has only made one mistake. That was on one occasion when he and Zhu Yu together sent her away from Blizzard City to gain experience in the outside world. Trust is something that, once cracked, is difficult to maintain. Zhu Zheng never considered replacing him with a more obedient person. He was already the Supreme Commander with absolute power. Even in Blizzard City today, Deng Yuanhua, the head of the Deng family, has more influence than him. You should ask around. Who in the entire Huashu Kingdom knows that Deng Shintong is Zhang Yi's henchman? Lan Xinqing nodded and said, "Yes, Commander, I have always understood your support for me." Zhu Zheng reached out and touched his lower back. Over the years, he had been a heavy drinker and womanizer, and coupled with his anxiety, his health had long been compromised, especially his kidneys. This is the second time they've been replaced. Although over the course of more than a decade, Zhang Yi used technology brought from other races to elevate the strength of the entire Huashu Kingdom by several levels. This rapid leap in national power can affect every aspect of life. And the military and energy sectors, they have reached the level of the third tier of modern civilization and are even approaching the level of the second tiered, and the medical field. Mentioning it is not very common. Zhu Zheng's ailment can only be suppressed using various technologies. It cannot be completely cured. Thinking about this, Zhu Zheng suddenly gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath. Damn it, that guy Zhang, he just wants me dead. He only asked his woman to treat his illness, but he refused. He clearly intends to hand over control of Jiangnan to the Deng family after I die. The maid standing nearby turned pale, with fright upon hearing this, because in the Jiangnan region, and throughout the entire Huashu kingdom, Zhang Yi is considered a godlike figure. Everyone at home worshipped the form of his armor. Zhu Zheng actually dared to speak rudely to Zhang Yi here. If this gets out, it will probably cause a huge uproar. Upon seeing this, Lan Xinqing's eyes turned cold, and he gave the maid a meaningful look. You can go out now. Remember, don't say anything you shouldn't. The maid was so frightened that she trembled all over and ran out immediately. Lan Xinqing stepped forward and bowed to Zhu Zheng, saying, After all, Dr. Zhou is Zhang Yi's woman. Given his current status and position, I understand why he would allow his woman to treat men. Zhu Zheng once made a special video call to Zhang Yi, hoping that Zhou Yi, the best doctor in Huashu Kingdom, would come to treat his illness. As long as you have a breath left, we can revive you, and even restore severed limbs. Zhu Zhengben believed he had some influence with Zhang Yi, and as long as he asked, Zhang Yi would have Zhou Nuer treat his illness. To his utter surprise, Zhang Yi refused at that time, and the reason he gave was, there was no reason. He simply wanted his woman to treat that old geezer Zhu Zheng. Zhu Zheng was so angry he felt like his lungs were about to explode, but he still had a forced smile on his face. Zhu Zheng grew angrier the more he thought about it, and finally, he sighed helplessly. Who would have thought that the warehouse manager from back then would rise to where he is today? He vigorously rubbed his hands. The weather has been so nice these past 2 days. Let's find a sunny day to perform the surgery. By using the vibrant bodies of those young people to prolong life, this is the contribution they can make to this Gangnam district. Lan Xinqing nodded slightly, a strange light flashing in his eyes. You're right. After all, using a high-sounding banner to sacrifice others for your own benefit, is that your consistent way of doing things? Zhu Zheng's eyes widened suddenly as he stared in disbelief at the secretary who had been with him for many years. Lan Xinqing, who gave you permission to speak to me like that? Do you want to die? He slammed his hand on the armrest. Lan Xinqing raised his head, his deep eyes meeting his gaze. Zhu Zheng's expression changed drastically after just one glance at him. You're from Lanxin City, but who exactly are you? Zhu Shuai, it's been a long time. How come you even know me? Lan Xinqing said with a smile. He took off his military cap, and his face, which was exactly the same as Lan Xinqing's, suddenly began to twist like a crumpled rag. A moment later, his face transformed into a resolute and weathered expression, a face that Zhu Zheng was very familiar with, a face that he often dreamed about in his nightmares at midnight. High and long sky. He actually appeared in the heavily fortified blizzard city, Gao Chongkong. Zhu Zheng was so frightened that he jumped up from the sofa. He deftly retrieved a plasma pulse pistol from behind the sofa and fired several shots at Gao Chongkong. The energy blast created ripples in front of Gao Chongkong, but it couldn't even touch the hem of his clothes. Sun Luxuan, protect me. Zhu Zheng roared in terror. Behind him, in the shadows of a corner, a figure slowly emerged, a man in a suit, with his hair slicked back, who, despite his advanced age, was still very energetic. Zhu Zheng's top bodyguard, Tiger Head Junior Guardian Sun Luxuan. He stood in front of Zhu Zheng, his gaze towards Gao Chongkong filled with solemnity. Now that he has advanced to the Black Chariot level, he is one of the top 10 players in Blizzard City. When facing Gao Chongkong, his vigilance as a professional bodyguard gave him an urge to run away. Gao Chongkong merely glanced at Sun Luxuan indifferently, without making a move. A powerful surge of supernatural energy erupted from his body like a flood. In an instant, Sun Luxuan's body was pressed down, and he was forced to kneel on the ground, as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him, and he was completely unable to move. Chapter 2943 Blue Spider Lily. Your current strength is actually this great? Sun Luxuan was pinned to the ground, unable to even lift his head, which caused him to break out in a cold sweat. Gao Changkong sighed helplessly. Compared to that monster Zhang Yi, what am I? But beating you all is too easy. The surrounding area was filled with the sound of sirens blaring. Zhu immediately notified all armed police forces in Blizzard City to come and protect him. After his assassination attempt, the area around his office was now under the most stringent security measures. While doing so, he also immediately sent a message to Tianhai City. Although Zhang Yi has taken away most of Tianhai City's armed forces, the remaining one is still able to support the entire Huashu Kingdom's defense system. As long as the armed forces there can be mobilized, suppressing Gao Changkong is a piece of cake. But Gao Changkong just watched quietly as Zhu Zheng did everything. Looking at his white hair and his desperate struggle to survive, like a stray dog, her eyes were filled with mockery. He watched Zhu Zheng's flustered appearance with amusement, as if he were watching a good show. What? Now that you're old, you've lost your courage and are so afraid of dying. A few years ago, although you were a liar and a bad person, at least you still had some guts. Now that you're here, I'm not even as keen on killing you anymore. Around Zhu Zheng's office, countless captain-level superhumans lay sprawled on the ground. Gu Man and Mu Tu guarded the entire area, and no one could get close. Gao Changkong sat on the sofa, looking at Zhu Zheng, who was in a panic, trying to escape but staring intently at Gao Changkong, not daring to make any move. It's like a cat teasing a mouse that's about to be eaten. Gao Changkong, you mustn't act impulsively. Regarding your family's situation, I was forced into it. He placed his hands on his chest and said, You may think I'm the supreme commander of the Jiangnan region, but in reality, I'm just a puppet. The decision to eliminate a portion of the lower classes was made jointly by representatives of all major powers in the Gangnam region. If I listen to their opinions, I will step down. Gao Changkong simply crossed his hands and supported Zhu Zheng's lower body, smiling as he watched Zhu Zheng struggle in his death throes. Hearing this, he smiled and nodded. I know all of this. The night before last, I killed almost all of those guys. There are indeed some survivors, but don't worry, I killed them all before I came. Zhu Zheng felt a strong chill envelop his body. Means that tonight, Gao Changkong will definitely let him go no matter what. The reason why he was left until the end was simply to better torture him to death. If you want to do this, I actually still admire you. If you kill me, Zhang Yi will not let you go. Yes, I'm Zhang Yi's man now. He's the #1 expert in the world. Can you afford to mess with him? Upon hearing this, Gao Changkong slowly raised his head, a mocking look flashing in his eyes. He said in a teasing tone, Why don't you think about it? The kingdom of Huashu possesses a nationwide defensive array capable of withstanding invasions by Black Knights, yet I was able to infiltrate here silently. These words struck Zhu Zheng like a thunderbolt. He stood there dumbfounded, his face turning deathly pale. You're getting old, but you're still doing well. It's only thanks to Zhang Yi's protection that you, the current ruler, can withstand any external risks and properly be the lord of Blizzard City. But you always think about finding an opportunity to overthrow his rule. Do you think Zhang Yi is an idiot? The last thing Xin relied on was ironically the person he hated most, who actually gave up on him. This made Zhu Zheng feel like the sky had fallen, and he slumped to the ground in despair. Gao Changkong's teasing voice came from beside her. You're the only smart person in the world. Do you think Zhang Yi really saw through your pretense and feigned obedience? That guy is more cunning than anyone else.
Why?
Why did this happen? Zhu Zheng's eyes were already somewhat unfocused. I've been so good to him. I do whatever he asks me to do. Why would he give up on me? Because you are no longer of any use to me. Gao Changkong said, an ambitious man with no ability and a promising white knight-level superhuman. If it were you, who would you choose? Zhang Yi and Gao Changkong's collaboration was completed before he left Earth. Moreover, it was Gao Changkong who took the initiative to approach him. He said to Zhang Yi, Now you hold the highest power in Huashu Kingdom, and no one dares to oppose your opinions. Now, Could you give me a chance to avenge my parents and kill my enemies in exchange for a partner with unlimited potential? Zhang Yi agreed to his proposal without the slightest hesitation. Because of the two of them, they are essentially the same kind of people. The reason why Zhu Zheng was spared was simply because Zhang Yi had not yet fully grasped the power of discourse in the entire Huaxu kingdom at that time. If Zhu Zheng is eliminated in this way, it may cause resentment among the supreme commanders of the other major regions. But now, he has the final say in Huaxu Kingdom, and he can take advantage of the country's weakness to do Zhu Zheng, that old geezer, a favor. Zhu Zheng realized that he was completely finished. He suddenly burst into laughter. Damn Zhang Yi, you betrayed me. Ha ha ha. He laughed loudly, tears of despair streaming from his eyes. However, besides that, he actually uttered another curse word. He did hate Zhang Yi, but if it weren't for that damned Zhang Yi, he might have died long ago during the previous wars of invasion by foreign tribes. So, what gives him the right to hate Zhang Yi? He closed his eyes, looking resolute, and said to Gao Changkong, Gao Changkong, you may kill me today. But I want to tell you that I don't regret what I did. Because if I put you in my position, you would do the same thing. Gao Changkong stared at his death-defying appearance and suddenly sneered. I like how you can pretend to be doing it for the greater good even when you're clearly doing it for your own benefit. You speak so grandly, but among those who died back then, not a single one of your family members was among them. Even your old dog is doing just fine. Zhu Zheng glared at him angrily. Give me a quick death. Gao Changkong's smile deepened. He suddenly appeared in front of Zhu Zheng, took out a syringe from his hand, and then forcefully inserted it into Zhu Zheng's neck. A blue medicine was quickly injected into Zhu Zheng's vein. Zhu Zheng's body suddenly began to tremble violently, and his eyes became somewhat unfocused. Gao Changkong whispered in his ear, Don't worry, my hatred for you has lasted for several months. How could I let you die so easily? Do you know how my parents died? They were over 60 years old, about the same age as you are now, wrapped in such thin clothes, slowly dying of hypothermia in temperatures below -70 degrees Celsius. So, I'll let you die so quickly. This medicine, Blue Spider Lily, can give you an incredibly wonderful experience before you die. Your thoughts will be extended indefinitely, and at the same time you will be able to feel the pleasure of every inch of your body being torn apart by ants. It feels as if 1 billion ants are frantically gnawing at every corner of your body, in your blood vessels, and in your bone marrow. This is all your retribution. Chapter 2944 changed. Zhu Zheng's body suddenly began to convulse violently. His eyes were fixed on Gao Changkong, but soon his gaze became unfocused. His entire body, every muscle, every inch of skin, every cell was trembling violently. The pain was like 1 trillion needles stimulating every nerve in his body, so intense that every cell trembled. Consciousness was delayed countless times, as if being subjected to slow, agonizing torture again and again. Uffed. A foul-smelling substance emanated from beneath his body, and he quickly lost control of his bladder. Saliva, snot, tears, and excrement flowed out in large quantities. Gao Changkong stood quietly not far away, watching his tragic death unfold. The expression on his face finally became more and more joyful. Ha 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 ha, he laughed, but the laughter was only a fleeting pleasure at first, and in the end it seemed like crying. His long-held obsession was finally let go at this moment, but all he got in return was endless emptiness. He sat on the sofa, relaxed his control over Sun Luxuan, and said into the communication device, It's over. Sun Luxuan gasped for breath, staring at the dead Zhu Zheng on the ground, his eyes filled with desolation and grief. The door was opened, and Lan Xinqing walked in. He smelled the stench in the room and looked at Zhu Zheng lying in the excrement, but there wasn't much sadness in his eyes. Instead, he rushed to Zhu Zheng's desk, opened drawer after drawer, pulled out a large number of documents, and then immediately burned them with a lighter. Back then, many of the things Zhu Zheng did were carried out by Lan Xinqing. For example, Zhu Zheng has completely become history, and he must also clean up all his past scandals. Gao Changkong said calmly to Lan Xinqing, You need to prepare the press release as quickly as possible. Have you thought about what to say? Lan Xinqing didn't even look up, continuing to burn a large amount of documents as he said, "Is there any need to say more? Commander Zhu Zheng is always worried about the country and its people, and he's constantly in a state of anxiety. It's not surprising that he would have some health problems. At that time, we will elect the head of the Deng family as the new commander of the Jiangnan region, and no one will object. Then, I'll give you the prodigal son returns excuse and let you come back to Huaxu Kingdom. As long as the top leadership agrees on the same line and the propaganda department makes some arrangements, no one will have any objections to you. Whether they are enemies or friends is a matter for us to decide." Gao Changkong whistled, put his hands behind his head, and stared at the person in front of him who was fuming. Just then, Sun Lushuan stood up, his eyes fixed on Gao Changkong. "Have you forgotten that I'm still here? What? Is there anything else you want to say?" Gao Changkong looked at Sun Lushuan with a playful expression. "Zhu Zheng is dead, and we will officially take over the Jiangnan region. Even Zhang Yi agrees with this. If you choose to avenge him, you will be making an enemy of us, and that is, an enemy of the entire Huaxu Kingdom. Have you really thought this through?" Sun Lushuan suddenly sneered. "Did you think I would submit to you at this time? No, you're wrong. No matter what Zhu Shuai did to you back then, he never wronged me. If you treat me as a national hero, I will repay you as a national hero. You killed him right in front of me. I must avenge him." Gao Changkong sat up straight, looking at Sun Lushuan, this veteran martial arts master, with a hint of admiration in his eyes. "But you know you're no match for me. So, are you still courting death?" Sun Lushuan nodded. "Please give me this chance to die." When he finished speaking, he reached into his sleeves and pulled them out, revealing several black steel wires stretched taut, his deadly weapon. Whoosh! In an instant, he had rushed to Gao Changkong's side, the several thin steel wires in his hand, like sharp blades, pierced through the air with a shrill sound. Gao Changkong didn't even raise his head. The sun will seal appeared in his right hand, which had already condensed into a golden holy sword. He slashed fiercely forward, eye in the blink of an eye. All the steel wires snapped, and Sun Lushuan's body was cleaved diagonally in two. Zhu Zheng's bodyguard, a martial arts master, fell so easily. Lan Xinqing turned his head and glanced at Sun Lushuan's body, which had been split in two, and sighed, saying, "Why did you do this?" Gao Changkong did not waste Sun Lushuan's essence and absorbed it directly. Although the 20,000 plus points of his original ability index weren't a huge help, it wasn't a complete waste. After completing these tasks, the garrison troops outside quickly received a message from the commander-in-chief, ordering them to immediately return to their original positions and await further orders. The military leaders who came to protect Zhu Zheng after receiving his distress call were also completely bewildered. However, soon, the various military leaders of Blizzard City spoke up in unison, and without further instructions from Zhu Zheng, they had no choice but to send their troops back to their original positions. Apart from the deaths of some of Zhu Zheng's close confidants, the operation did not result in any further casualties. That very night, all the garrison troops of Blizzard City were ordered to be on high alert. The soldiers slept fully clothed, with their weapons placed by their bedsides, and the news of Zhu Zheng's death was well concealed. After a night of discussions, a message spread to the top levels of all regions of Huaxu Kingdom, as well as the entire Jiangnan region. The report states that last night, the supreme commander of the Gangnam region, due to years of worry about the people and defense of the Gangnam region, suffered a sudden and serious illness and passed away despite all efforts to save him. Following a democratic election by the Jiangnan region, Deng Yuanbo, the Minister of Science and Technology, was appointed as the supreme commander of the Jiangnan region. This news surprised many people. Although Zhu Zheng was not young, he was able to enjoy the best living conditions, and his medical care was not bad. Every day, a professional medical team would conduct physical examinations for him. How could he suddenly die from a serious illness? However, the higher-ups in the region did not raise many questions about this. Because the supreme commander of the Jiangnan region is only a nominal position, everyone knows that the person in charge here is Zhang Yi. Although Zhang Yi was in the Starry Sky Corridor, No one would dare to trespass into the Jiangnan region's territory and kill Zhu Zheng without his permission. Furthermore, the close relationship between the newly appointed leader, Deng Yuanbo, and Zhang Yi inevitably raises questions about the implications behind this matter. Therefore, the top leaders of the various regions only expressed their condolences as a courtesy and congratulated Deng Yuanbo on his appointment as the new supreme commander of the Jiangnan region. Chapter 2945 Deputy Commander of Jiangnan Region. As for the general public, the death of Zhu Nian did not cause much of a stir. In the Jiangnan region, in most people's minds, Zhang Yi is the eternal totem of glory, while Zhu Yi's presence is indeed too weak. However, there was another piece of news that caused an even greater shock than Zhu's death. Gao Changkong had returned. Upon assuming office, Deng Yuanbo immediately issued a pardon for Gao Changkong and repeatedly emphasized that Gao Changkong's actions were understandable. Now that he has traveled extensively abroad, he has grown into a powerful and extraordinary individual, and this is a good time for him to serve his country. Furthermore, Du expressed that he deeply realized that Du's actions were too impulsive and was willing to make amends with the dedication of the rest of his life. So, the Jiangnan region lifted its pursuit of Gao Changkong, allowing him to return and serve the country. Originally, Gao Changkong had a very good reputation in the Jiangnan region, especially among the locals of Blizzard City, who often secretly spoke up for him. Now that official confirmation has been received, Gao Changkong's return has immediately sparked cheers from most people. After all, this adds another night-level powerhouse to the Jiangnan region, whose value certainly far exceeds that of a commander who is merely a figurehead. Everything unfolded naturally, as if it had been preordained. Anyone with a keen political sense could guess that Zhang Yi must have given permission behind this, but no one would be foolish enough to stand up and expose it. Gao Changkong, Gu Man, and Bado have returned. When they left, their team had a total of 8 members, but now only 3 remain. Their companions died one after another during their travels. The 3 people came back from the gate of Blizzard City. On this day, one after another, red ribbons hundreds of meters long were thrown down from the city wall, like bright flags, to warmly welcome the return of Team Reincarnation Captain Gao Changkong, Vice Captain Gu Man, and team member Badu to Blizzard City. In Blizzard City, the old man from the village of Daffodin, who had once received help from Gao Changkong, now stands tearfully on both sides of the road, welcoming the villagers back. With the highest level of hospitality, the city gates opened, and the people, wearing their long-treasured combat uniforms from the Samsara team, returned with their heads held high. The cheers around them were like a mountain collapsing and a tsunami crashing, and everyone's eyes quickly welled up with tears. More than 10 days have passed, and we have finally returned to this land under the bright sun. Everything seems like a different world, yet it feels like it happened just yesterday. Deng Yuanbo led his entourage to them and extended his hand to Gao Changkong. "Welcome back, King of Reincarnation." Gao Changkong smiled slightly. "From today onwards, I, who have been here for a long time, have already lost the title of Garuda." Deng Yuanbo said to Gao Changkong, "Starting today, you will be appointed as the deputy commander of the garrison forces in the Jiangnan region." Gao Changkong smiled slightly. "With Zhang Yi around, whatever we do is just a nominal position." Deng Yuanbo laughed and said, "We can't rely on Zhang Yi for everything. We also need to work hard to become stronger ourselves." Several familiar faces appeared before, including Tu Yunlai, the supreme commander of the Yan Yun Guard, Hu Feishua, the captain of the Rose team, and Lu Huang, the captain of the Demon team. The group didn't say much, but simply came over and shook hands with each of them. Having weathered countless trials, brothers reunite with a smile, forgetting all past grievances. There are already many of my companions who have survived from the beginning of the apocalypse to the present day, and meeting them again feels like a lifetime ago. However, no one had any objection to Gao Changkong being appointed as the deputy commander of the garrison. Of the original 6 special forces, Gao Changkong was the strongest in terms of both strength and talent. Moreover, nowadays, he is the only remaining night-level superhuman in the Jiangnan region besides Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin. Gao Changkong politely accepted the deputy commander's banner. Drinking ice water for 10 days cannot cool down hot blood. Over the past 10 days, the coldness of being adrift and helpless has finally dissipated, and I have found the feeling of home again. While the Gangnam region was enjoying a harmonious and joyful scene, from the deepest part of the universe, a type spaceship was rapidly descending towards Earth. The spaceship landed in the territory of the Nor tribe. Of the 4 black Knight-level powerhouses who originally planned the assassination of Zhang Yi, only Barboda of the Nor tribe has survived. When first entered the experimental planet's area, unlike Edward and Lamb, he did not continue to pursue Zhang Yi. Instead, after realizing that the situation was out of control, she decisively chose to turn around and walk back. As a top-tier space-type ability user, followed the coordinates left behind and sped away from the star corridor, eventually returning to the land of On-Earth. After returning to his tribe, he did 2 things. First, the failure of the assassination attempt was reported to the tribe under the command of the higher authorities. The second thing was that after receiving definite news from above, the clan summoned its entire people without hesitation and prepared to leave Earth. In the course of the All-Race Alliance's operations, secretly assassinating allies is a serious matter. However, their operation failed and was directly exposed to the allied forces of 10,000 races by Zhang Yi. The impact of this incident was undoubtedly enormous. Once the Starry Sky Corridor operation concludes and all races return, the Dragon Clan, who have been protecting the Huashu Kingdom, will undoubtedly seize the opportunity to launch an attack. Even the most powerful figures above us cannot protect us from harm. The best option right now is to leave Earth and head into the depths of space so that we can avoid punishment. Although leaving Earth means leaving the center of the universe, one will no longer be under the protection of the Creator. But now that we've entered the apocalypse, this place may not be very safe. Getting away from here and hiding for a while is the best option. Noel then informed several races of this news, including the Spider Demons, the Vampires, and the Nightmare Clan. Upon receiving the news, these races could hardly believe what they had heard. The Nightmare Clan's remaining powerful members said in disbelief, "We planned a flawless assassination, yet it all failed. What kind of monster is this chaos, spanning 6 generations?" Barba said, "Their actions were indeed perfect, but they underestimated the caution of chaos. Chaos has always been on guard against them and has made ample preparations. It is a wise choice for us to remain on Earth now and wait for the return of all races to judge us. We will leave Earth and go to the depths of the universe to hide for a period of time. Given our level of technological civilization, it would be difficult for us to find a planet similar to Earth to rebuild a life base." Chapter 2946. Without Zhang Yi, Huashu Kingdom is in crisis. Although the vampires and spider demons were equally shocked by the mission's failure, they had not been without preparations for action. Therefore, they did not hesitate to gather their people and prepare to escape Earth. After all, our race only has a population of tens of millions. With dozens of giant warships and years of technological and cultural development and resource accumulation, interstellar migration is not a difficult task. However, the Nightmare Clan coldly rejected the proposal for the 3 clans to leave together. The Nightmare Clan's strength far surpasses that of the other 3 races, placing them in the top tier among all races, second only to the 6 super races. The Nightmare Clan's powerful remaining member, the Nightmare Demon, even said, "Even if one day the nightmares return and attack our clan has enough strength to deal with such trouble, and there is no need to run away." The depths of the universe are ultimately extremely dangerous places, and staying on the central planet is the best option. The 3 tribes of Qi said no more and left one after another. However, as Barboda left, he had some reservations. "Since we're all going to escape anyway, why don't we launch a fierce attack on Huashu Kingdom before we leave?" The vampires and spider demons did not agree to Barboda's insane proposal. "We didn't have any grudges against the 6 generations. We just received a promise from the person above us to participate in the assassination. Now that I have failed to kill anyone and have been killed myself, I can only blame my own incompetence. If we continue to escalate the enmity, we may suffer the consequences of karma in the future. The two races of people rejected Barboda's proposal and chose to go to space instead. But Barboda was ultimately not satisfied. The dignified Noral clan's space master, a top-tier celestial, has already reached the Black Knight level at the young age of 150. Moreover, at the end of this era, he is expected to take advantage of the world's changes to reach the Queen level and truly step into the ranks of the strong. Now I am forced to leave my hometown. How can I possibly accept this? The entire Nor tribe quickly organized all its assets and sent its people aboard colossal spaceships for long-distance space travel. Before leaving, Barba gazed at the land behind him, feeling a sense of peace and tranquility. It seems I have no choice but to leave Earth, leave the kingdom I created with my own hands, and leave the place where my ancestors' tombs are located. If the Nor tribe ever falls, I should die here in the line of duty, so that I may report to my ancestors and face my people. Do you think I must be filled with unbearable sorrow at this moment? Do you think I must have unspeakable regrets? No, my heart cannot bear it any longer. Yes, I will die without a burial place. Upon hearing Barboda's words, the surrounding Nor people instinctively clenched their fists, their eyes filled with disapproval. This departure from Earth may mean that our generation will never have the chance to return. Immediately, a powerful member of the Noral tribe roared, "Our inability to kill the sixth-generation chaos is due to our inadequacy. But this feud cannot be easily resolved by making us abandon our homeland. Yes, we can't let them have a good time before we leave and turn Hwashu Kingdom into ruins. When chaos returns and sees the devastation of our homeland, let it feel our pain too." Barba took a deep breath. "All right, then before we leave, let's leave chaos with an unforgettable gift." On this day, one giant warship after another left the surface of Earth, which attracted the attention of many people. However, the people did not know why these groups left. After all, the allied forces of 10,000 races were now deep in the Star Corridor, where news was isolated from the outside world, and no one knew what had happened. Meanwhile, in Hwashu Kingdom, people were also watching the situation unfolding in the starry sky. However, suddenly, Lu Hai and Xiao Honglian, members of the Shadow Squad left behind in Jiangnan District, noticed something was amiss. How could a foreign fleet be approaching our Hwashu Kingdom? Oh no! Could it be that they intend to attack our Hwashu Kingdom while Zhang Yi and his men are away? Xiao Honglian's face was solemn. Lu Hai immediately retorted, "Impossible. If anyone dares to do that, they will violate the agreement made by all races and will definitely be attacked by all races. Are you looking to die? Or do you simply not want to stay on Earth any longer? But hasn't someone already left here?" Xiao Honglian reminded him aloud. In the vast universe, warships from various races had already sailed far away, and this inexplicable phenomenon made Xiao Honglian and Lu Hai's heart sink. Lu Hai comforted Xiao Honglian, saying, "Don't worry, His Highness left behind a defensive force field covering the entire country before he left. It can block night-level attacks, so they can't break through." Xiao Honglian swallowed hard, her voice still tense. However, the vast majority of our energy and defensive equipment have already been taken away by the Supreme Beings. What remains is simply no match for the full-scale attack of a civilization with a Black Knight-level expert. With limited time, the two hurriedly summoned all the cadres of Tianhai City. After the core members of the Hwashu Kingdom left, we became the highest commanders here. This includes Li Jian from the Ministry of Agriculture and Ma Wenjing from the Ministry of Ideological and Political Affairs, among others. With the enemy approaching, Ma Wenjing, hands on the table, offered his opinion. "With our current strength, we're simply not in a position to command the entire battle. I suggest that we immediately inform the higher-ups of the 6th Ward and have them send out a strong leader to take charge of the battle." Xiao Honglian's brows were almost furrowed. More than 90% of the entire Hwashu Kingdom's Ypsilons have already entered the Star Corridor, and the remaining people will probably be unable to hold out for the situation. That's true. Among those with an ability index of over 30,000, only Gao Chongkong, who has just returned, remains in the entire Huashu kingdom. Ma Wenjing then said, "Don't forget there's one more person." Xiao Honglian's gaze sharpened. "You mean Gao Changkong? This guy has always been our enemy. Can he be trusted now?" Ma Wenjing said, "You should understand the principle that if one suffers, all suffer. If one prospers, all prosper. The authorities don't have much time to make a decision right now, so the high-ranking officials of the 6 districts gathered together to discuss their strategy for dealing with the enemy. Ultimately, everyone placed their hopes on Taka Nagakura, who had just returned. A wild Epsilon-level user somehow managed to fight his way up and eventually acquire White Knight-level strength. Although they are not considered top-tier among the various civilizations, they had no other choice at this moment. Deng Yuanbo looked at Gao Changkong and said, "You've just returned and are already in an important military position. If you don't fight a tough battle, you might not be able to win everyone's hearts. You'll be in charge of this defense mission from now on." Chapter 2947 The Strike of a Stray Dog. A glint of heat flashed in Gao Changkong's eyes. "Interesting. You've just come back and you're already doing something so big? That's amazing." Zhang Yi had already issued an order to the entire Huashu kingdom, instructing the 36 gang of the Shengjing region to set up spatial teleportation channels at various key nodes, overseen by Jiexing Daisheng. At almost the same time, all the high-ranking officials and top combatants of the region were transported to Sea City. This place is also the defense and energy center of the entire Huashu kingdom. When Gao Changkong arrived here and saw the handwriting left by Zhang Yi, he couldn't help but gasp. Over the years, he has harbored a desire for revenge, working desperately to grow stronger, even going so far as to become a bastard and attack Barada's dragon followers, thus gaining his current strength. However, compared to Zhang Yi, he is still far behind. Above the sky, the Norse fleet, like giant black mountains, floated in. The sun's rays were blocked, and the entire city was plunged into endless darkness. Gao Changkong, as their representative, took the initiative to contact them. This is the territory of the Huashu Kingdom, the first generation of humans. According to the Treaty of All Races, no one may easily invade our airspace without permission. What race are you from? What brings you here? Upon hearing someone speaking to them, the Nor people all sneered. That smile carried a hint of anger and a ferocity that threatened to destroy the place. A high-ranking Norse noble, a knight, responded coldly. "Remember this. Everything you are suffering today is caused by the chaos of your leader." As soon as he finished speaking, the hatch of the main gun on a starship opened, revealing the enormous planet-destroying cannon. A terrifying dark light descended directly upon Guhai City. Boom! When the thick black light was more than 1 kilometer above the city of Guhai, it suddenly collided with an invisible energy shield and was blocked. Terrifying energy fluctuations splashed out ripples in the void. However, not a single bit of power fell into the territory of High City. Xiao Honglian turned her head to look at an energy tower not far away. The data system indicated that the power of the energy tower was increasing. Seeing this, Xiao Honglian took a deep breath, her eyes shining with joy. It's ancient civilization technology that Zhang Yi and his group somehow obtained. It's so powerful that it can absorb enemy attacks and use them for its own benefit. It's truly terrifying. This scene, witnessed by the Nor people, left them utterly shocked.
What?
A full-force shot from the main gun of a planetary warship couldn't break through their defenses. The shock of all the Nor people was beyond words. Since Zhang Yi mastered the technology of the Yihan clan's engineers and the Sand Raiders civilization and built this all-encompassing defense system, he has not yet truly experienced a war of the size of a multi-nation war. Therefore, no one knows exactly how powerful this defense system is. In other words, the all-encompassing defensive force field surrounding the Huashu Kingdom is, in some aspects, based on technology from the Yihan race, the highest-level civilization in the universe. Zhang Yi knew very well that they couldn't achieve the same level of power as the Yihan clan's Inner Asia, so 99% of this system was focused on defense. As for attacks, there is absolutely no need for them because the 3 super battleships and the sea fortresses carry almost all the offensive weapons. Zhang Yi will not hand over the control of the super weapon to others. Go all out and break through. Concentrate all your strength on one point. A night-level powerhouse from the Noral race gave the order, and immediately, more than 10 enormous spaceships attacked the skies above the city of Guhai. Boom, boom, boom. One terrifying energy wave after another, like a destructive force descending from the depths of the universe, slammed into the sky above the city of Jihai. In an instant, a sharp blue light flashed across the sky above the entire Huaxiu kingdom. The autonomous defense system does not maintain a global level of defense at all times, but rather can detect any approaching attack in a timely manner and concentrate all defensive forces on a single point. Furthermore, it absorbs 90% of the attack power on the body and converts it into its own defensive power. This level of attack relentlessly assaulted the defensive force field of the Huaxiu kingdom, resulting in a stalemate between the two forces. For a time, the main guns of the Norn warships were unable to break through the defenses of the Huaxiu kingdom. All the high-ranking officials of Huaxiu kingdom gathered here, their palms sweating with tension. Gradually, as they discovered that their defense system could actually withstand this terrifying attack, a slight smile appeared on their faces. Was the defensive system left behind by Zhang Yi really that strong? Li Guangxiao, the supreme commander of the East China Sea region, muttered to himself. The spirit of Xuanwu hovered beside him. This bishop-level superhuman, whose body was a giant sea beast, did not participate in the interstellar expedition. He was also one of the few key players at this time. After hearing Li Guangxiao's words, he said calmly, "We've known chaos for over a decade. You can question him in other areas, but in the field of defense, I've never seen anyone more monstrous than him. He's the kind of person who considers not losing a fight a victory, someone who has no belief in the power of a strong man." The warship's main guns fired continuously for more than 30 seconds, and the Nor people went from being full of confidence at the beginning to being completely dumbfounded. Immediately cut off the energy output. We shouldn't waste too much energy here, otherwise it will affect our interstellar travel. They determined that, given the current energy output ratio, it was impossible to predict when they could truly break through Huaxiu Kingdom's defensive force field. They only intended to wreak havoc on the Huaxiu Kingdom before leaving, and did not want to cause too much energy loss. At that moment, Barberta stepped forward. "Let me give it a try." This night-level expert is preparing to take action personally. Barbotas hold a highly respected position among the Norns. As a third-tier race, they possess 2 Black Knights. Barbota's ability index is 65,000 points, making him the strongest in his race. The Nor people were invigorated when they saw that Barbota was preparing to take action personally. If His Excellency Barbota is willing to take action personally, he can break through the boundaries of this space and destroy their defense system. No, just tear a crack in their defenses, and we'll unleash the power of our warship's main guns upon their land. Even if we can't destroy this entire race, destroying that damned, chaotic homeland will at least vent our anger." Barbota didn't say much, but in a flash, he appeared directly above the city of Guhai. He squinted, looking down at this magnificent and prosperous land. Chapter 2948 The Void Race. This was his first time visiting Zhang Yi's hometown. Seeing those ultra-modern buildings that had been directly transported from the Martian world where the Sand Raider civilization was located, he couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Judging from their architecture alone, this level of civilization is even more advanced than that of the Noral people. We are about to flee to the edge of the universe, losing the protection of our main star, and will have to fight against cosmic storms, star destruction, and black hole devouring every day. How could we possibly leave you here to enjoy peace and tranquility? He floated in midair, raising his arms high. In the vast sky, the swift wind made his sleeves flutter loudly. He activated the power of space in his hands, drawing out a fold of space from the void to form an independent, enclosed space. At that moment, he created another space outside of the existing space. Layer upon layer, 13 spaces were continuously compressed in his palm, like Russian nesting dolls. After the space was compressed to its limit, he pressed this power down hard onto the defensive layer of Tianhai City. Dimensional stripping. The 13 layers of space converged and rapidly pressed down on the innermost space, while the innermost space began to expand. When different spaces collide, dimensional collapse occurs, giving birth to extremely terrifying power. The annihilation of the 13 layers of space creates a chain reaction, and the power of the creation is enough to destroy a small landmass. This force has no shape and is invisible to the naked eye. It's simply and unadorned itself, shooting directly from the sky like a sharp sword towards the defensive force field of Tianhai City. Just as the force of spatial annihilation was about to collide with the defensive force field, a colossal, dark blue-black figure suddenly raised its head on the ground of Tianhai City. The enormous figure, resembling a god resurrected, roared up from the ground and grew rapidly towards the sky, instantly surpassing 1,000 meters in height. That enormous figure, like the Buddha in a temple, protected the entire city of Tianhai. Its entire body was bluish-black, with vertical pupils glaring between its brows, its fangs tightly clenched, and 3 rings of reincarnation burning fiercely behind it. He held a large golden sword in his right hand and slashed fiercely towards the sky. This sword actually collided directly with Barboda's attack. In an instant, the power of spatial collapse splashed terrifying golden waves on the golden greatsword, like a sun rising in the sky. A golden shockwave swept outwards, instantly dyeing the entire ocean and the clouds in the sky a brilliant and magnificent golden yellow. Barba's pupils suddenly contracted. How is that possible? Does the Huashu kingdom have hidden masters? The Nor people stared in disbelief at this scene. They could hardly imagine that Huashu kingdom had produced such a monster as Zhang Yi, who could reach the level of a Black Knight in such a short time. How could there possibly be a second one? To their astonishment, atop an energy spire in Tianhai City, Gao Changkong formed the immovable king seal with his right hand and stood there with his eyes closed. Behind it, a circular wheel shaped like a tantric talisman is spiraling. After Bharata's esoteric Buddhist practice, Gao Changkong's understanding of the heavenly dance wheel became stronger. The immovable king seal, which is the strongest defensive seal, has also unlocked its second form, the command wheel body, the wrathful Vajra form of the Tathagata. Of course, with just his individual abilities, Gao Changkong would absolutely not be able to withstand Babert's attack. However, since he is the highest authority to defend Huashu Kingdom, he can mobilize the power of the entire defensive array, allowing him to temporarily unleash the power to defend against Black Knight-level powerhouses. From thousands of meters away, the scene before him magnified in his pupils. Space seemed to have no meaning to him. He quickly spotted Gao Changkong's figure. Where did this nobody come from? Barba raised his right hand, and layer upon layer of space continued to spiral, shrink, and overlap before collapsing. Then that power in his palm, like a sharp sword, cleaved once more. Using the power of the defensive force field, Gao Changkong swung his sword again to meet the attack. Boom! The Dharma image trembled, and the earth shook. Gao Changkong felt his body shaking violently, as if his defenses would be breached at any moment. While Zhang Ilio's all-area defensive force field is indeed powerful, spatial ability users are most adept at breaking through such domain-type defensive barriers. No one knows what the outcome will be if the two sides continue to be locked in a stalemate. Gao Changkong, however, wore a smile, showing no fear whatsoever. Using a sound transmission device, he amplified his voice in all directions, ensuring that everyone in the Nor tribe could hear him clearly. I understand. You must have suffered a setback at the hands of chaos, so you had no choice but to flee the Earth's core. Before you left, you wanted to take your anger out on us, right? But I must remind you here that you have no idea how petty that guy is. If you dare to do anything to this place today, I guarantee that even if you escape to the most desolate place in the universe, he will hunt you down and kill you all. These words sent a jolt through many members of the Nor tribe. Everyone is afraid of rabid dogs. They think of the fate of the large clans surrounding the Huashu kingdom years ago. In the end, not a single member of the great clan was left alive. The more ruthless they were to the Huashu kingdom, the more severe the consequences of their attack, especially for the wolf clan. It is said that many members of the wolf tribe were made into wolf meat skewers, and their heads were cut off and piled up to form a huge jingguan, like a massive white bone pyramid, which still stands on the border of Huashu kingdom, making people tremble. Barberta said coldly, "We've done what we needed to do. Since he's a vengeful person, we might as well settle this grudge once and for all." His eyes were icy cold. "I originally planned to take it easy and teach you a lesson. But now, it's time to get serious." His body suddenly vanished in midair, then returned to the warship, appearing in a unique cockpit. You can use the power of external objects, and so can I. In the center of the cockpit stands a massive throne. From here, Barba can also mobilize the core power of the entire warship, merging it with his spatial abilities to generate even more terrifying offensive power. Today he must teach Zhang-Yi a bloody lesson here. The core furnace of the warship was burning fiercely, and Barboda sat on the throne without the slightest hesitation. Soon, that terrifying torrent of energy began to circulate, almost merging with his body. And the sky over Tianhai City has completely changed color. Chapter 2949 God Particle. The people of Tianhai City raised their heads and felt that the space in front of them was distorted. This wasn't the kind of light distortion caused by a powerful energy shockwave, but rather a violent fluctuation in the very fabric of space. Like a piece of incredibly strong yet thin silk being impacted by some force, twisting violently. Within this distortion, a terrifying illusory light appeared. That's the God Particle. A top physics scientist from the kingdom of Huashu shouted in a trembling voice. Even a large particle collider running at full power can only produce the God Particle, which is only 1 in a billionth of a second, and now it's visible to the naked eye. Are they trying to destroy the entire Huashu kingdom? The defense system's artificial intelligence immediately detected the terrifying energy level and issued a startling red alert. High alert ahead. All combat and non-combat personnel are to evacuate immediately. Xiao Honglian and the others' expressions changed completely. The Huashu kingdom is now just an empty shell. The vast majority of its fighting force and energy have been taken away by Zhang-Yi and his group. This is Zhang-Yi's usual practice. The Nor tribe has come with the full force of its tribe to attack. How could they possibly stop them? Will the kingdom of Huashu perish today? Li Guangxiao said in a trembling voice, and the faces of the high-ranking officials of the 6 major regions were extremely ugly. Deng Yuanbo, the newly appointed supreme commander of the Gangnam region, stood with his hands behind his back, looking up at the sky. "No, I believe that the supreme being of Huashu kingdom must have made arrangements before leaving." In the sky, space is truly distorted. It's not a visual illusion caused by light distortion. This force is so powerful that it folds space in a way that is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Boda is pushing the core power of the warship with all its might, aiming to launch the most powerful attack, directly piercing through the defensive force field barrier above Huashu Kingdom and turning this place into a living hell. At this very moment, in the far distance, lies a realm of beautiful mountains and clear waters, where birds sing and flowers bloom. The sky was a deep blue, with wisps of white clouds drifting slowly across it. In the distance, there are green mountains. In front of you, there is clear water. The lawn is soft, and the air is fresh. An old man, dressed in a wide white cotton robe, with his white hair neatly combed back and bare feet, sat cross-legged by the river fishing, staring intently at the fishing rod in his hand. But in the fish basket next to him, there were several strangely shaped fish, no bigger than his little finger. Suddenly, as if sensing something, he abruptly raised his head and looked up at the distant sky. Immediately, a look of disgust appeared on his face. These inferior races always love to do these low-class tricks. He freed one hand, picked up a straw sandal from the side, and casually tossed it towards the sky. The straw sandal vanished into thin air in an instant. At this very moment, above Tianhai City, the Tower of the North is preparing to launch its strongest attack, piercing through Tianhai City's defenses. Suddenly, without any warning, a straw sandal appeared in the void to his left. This left the person who was focused on attacking Tianhai City, Deberta, completely dumbfounded for a moment. As top-tier Black Knight-level spatial ability users, they can control any spatial fluctuations that occur in the surrounding territory. Moreover, with the help of the starship, he raised his power to an intensity almost equal to that of a queen, causing spatial fluctuations and even causing the god particle to emerge. How could anyone use spatial abilities and escape his eyes? However, he had no time to think about it, because the straw sandal had already passed through the terrifying spatial defense field in front of him and arrived in front of him as if it were nothing. Boom! With a loud thud, the straw sandal slammed into his chest. The next moment, just as everyone was preparing to watch this spectacular impact, the warship suddenly unleashed an incredibly terrifying power from within.
Boom!
The massive warship, as huge as a city, suddenly exploded from the inside in midair. Hundreds of thousands of armor plates were thrown out of the spaceship and shot in all directions. The interstellar warship billowed black smoke and instantly plummeted towards the city of Tianhai below. Everyone who saw this was stunned. They had no idea what was going on. Xiao Honglian murmured. Could it be that their equipment malfunctioned and exploded? Lu Dehai shook his head. That's unlikely. How could such an advanced ancient civilization make such a basic mistake? Everyone present was stunned. Although they didn't know what had happened, they knew that what was happening before their eyes must be a good thing. At this moment, Deng Yuanbo slowly said, "If I'm not mistaken, on this planet, the only one willing to protect our Huaxiu kingdom is our Huaxi race's cultural ancestor." A name came to mind. Dragon Clan? But haven't all the powerful dragons entered the depths of space? Li Guangxiao asked in surprise. Deng Yuanbo gave him a deep look. We are the ones who need to mobilize the entire civilization to explore deep space, not some godlike civilization. Everyone overlooked one thing. The two prodigies, Black Dragon and White Dragon, who were hailed as the two supreme beings of the heavens, had a lifespan of no more than 1,000 years. The Black Dragon was sealed beneath the dragon-locking well by Liu Bowen, a celestial official, 600 years ago. At that time, it was just a mischievous and unruly boy. And as a race of immortal beings, how could there not be a race like the Moon People or the Silver Moon Queen? The Bertha warship was destroyed instantly, and the people on the other planetary warships immediately panicked. They couldn't possibly let the warship crash, so the various warships immediately began to use their spatial powers to lift the destroyed warship up. How could this be? Who on earth made this move? Even our Nor tribe didn't notice it at all. A White Knight-level powerhouse gripped the warship's control panel with both hands, his eyes wide with astonishment, and cold sweat trickling down his back. Cough, 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 cough. A violent coughing sound came from the side, and the figure of Maboda emerged from the void. His armor on his chest was completely shattered, and a simple straw sandal was deeply embedded in his chest, denting his ribcage. Lord Berta! A group of people crowded around him in terror, but no one dared to move when they saw the injuries on his body. Run! Bada covered his mouth, thick, fresh blood flowing uncontrollably from the corner of his lips. The person who attacked me is at least the Black Queen, no. Even a king-level being.
Run!
It'll be too late if we don't leave now. Chapter 2950. The truth about Death. Barboda's words completely terrified all the high-ranking members of the Noral tribe. Although they knew that Huaxiu Kingdom was protected by the Dragon Clan, in their eyes, Huaxiu Kingdom was just a pawn of the Dragon Clan. The most talented among them, Chaos, Hutu, and West Wangmu, were only at the Knight level. How could the dragon race possibly send out such powerful beings to protect them? This is completely illogical, but for now, they dare not stay here any longer. The other starships forcibly lifted the almost completely destroyed starship, their engines revving at full power, propelling them through the atmosphere and into the deeper reaches of space. Everyone in Huaxiu Kingdom was relieved, feeling as if they had just escaped death. They knew nothing of what had happened, but could deduce that it was a backup plan laid by Zhang. What they didn't know is that this whole thing wasn't Zhang Yi's plan at all, since Zhang Yi couldn't possibly have planned everything perfectly. Even Zhang Yi himself was unsure just how important he was in the eyes of the Dragon Clan. All of this is not because the Huashu Kingdom was a race nurtured and raised by the Dragon Clan, nor is it because he was chosen by the Ihan clan and baptized by the Nada Ocean. It is for a reason that no one can imagine that this matter will only be answered in the future. Deep within the starry sky corridor, the dreamer set sail once more. It continued its journey deeper into the starry sky, following the path pioneered by the great super race with the guidance of the super-dimensional cube. Zhang Yi and his group's travel speed increased significantly. Their spacecraft travel at a much slower speed than the spaceships of the super race of the Nok. The speed of their journey is inevitably slow, often taking several months at a time. Zhang Yi and his team were not idle on the Dreamer. On one hand, it integrates the fragments obtained on the experimental star to enhance its own strength. On the other hand, Zhang Yi had Lu Karen and Yang Xinxin conduct in-depth research on everything obtained from the experimental star. For example, the special alloy material obtained from the deepest part of the experimental planet, which conceals superhumans and supernatural beings from both physical and supernatural perspectives. In-depth analysis of the data of the hyperdimensional Rubik's Cube. Don't underestimate any technological advancement. Perhaps the gains from deciphering the advanced technology of the alien star race will be greater than the benefits from killing a few Black Bishop-level Inhumans. Technology is the ladder of human progress. Less than half a month later, good news came from Lu Karen's side. Through his ability to transform into nothingness, he has already completed the analysis of this special material. Zhang Yi went over to check, and Lu Karen excitedly said to Zhang Yi, "It is very difficult to study the basic structure of this material through the process of transformation into nothingness. After all, they are naturally resistant to superpowers. However, it is still difficult for me to escape your skillful hands and your clever mind." Zhang Yi asked curiously, "Can you reproduce this material now?" Upon hearing this, Lu Karen awkwardly scratched her head. There are still some difficulties at the moment. The manufacturing process for this material is too complex. We have mastered the technology, but the equipment and materials are major problems. Zhang Yi looked at the scattered metal materials piled up everywhere in the laboratory and said, "Then take your time to study it. Just let me know if you need anything." Lu Karen named it metal number 55. However, this thing cannot be made into a weapon, because any alien who wants to wield it in battle will, before even attacking others, have their own power greatly weakened. There are probably some enhanced beings in the area who can carry it into battle. It can significantly weaken the strength of supernatural abilities within a limited distance. If used for actual attacks, its effectiveness is minimal. After pondering for a while, Zhang Yi suddenly asked Lu Karen, "Is it possible to carve this thing into an arrow?" His idea was to forge these things into arrows and then use the power of the God Destroyer suit itself to launch them. At crucial moments, it can seal the enemy. Lu Karen's eyes lit up, and she snapped her fingers, saying, "That's easy, of course. It just requires simple cutting and polishing. After all, its material is very hard, and if given enough momentum, it can cause great damage from a physical point of view. In addition, its inherent ability to suppress supernatural powers could very well catch the enemy off guard." Zhang Yi nodded. "Then do it this way for now. Use whatever power this thing can for the moment." Lu Karen readily agreed. Besides Lu Karen, Yang Xinxin also unlocked many secrets about the Star Clan through data analysis of the hyperdimensional cube. She said to Zhang Yi, "The nature of the starry sky corridor is an enormous experimental field. According to the explanation of the hyperdimensional cube, the Star Clan is trying to change their innate defects through artificial life forms. And thus, he became an existence transcending the universe. An inherent defect." Zhang Yi asked curiously, "This ethnic group should be considered the most powerful ethnic group in history. Apart from the Ihan and Druk people, I can't think of anyone more terrifying than them. What other flaws do they have?" Yang Xinxin looked at Zhang Yi and slowly said, "They cannot escape death. Zhang Yi's eyes slowly widened, and he suddenly realized something. Not every ethnic group can survive as long as the Aihen tribe, which has been transformed into a mythical race, or the Druk people, who forcibly remain in the material world due to their strong desire for fame. It turns out that the Star Clan can die. He couldn't help but frown and say, if we push biotechnology to its limits, will we still be unable to escape the demise of the physical body? Yang Xinshin said to Zhang Yi, no, it's not as simple as the physical body dying out. The Star Clan's technology in the field of biotechnology has reached its pinnacle. Their lifespan can even reach tens of millions of years, making them almost immortal. But no matter how much they renew their bodies, their spirits will gradually wither away after a certain age. Yang Xinshin extended a slender, white finger and pointed towards her brain. The conclusion drawn from their research is that the fusion of the higher dimensional with the physical body belonging to the dimension is not a permanent harmony. Matters belonging to different dimensions will repel each other. This rejection is not obvious in the short term, but after a certain period of time, the will be summoned from the world and eventually slowly break away.
Alright, that's it for today's chapter. Tell me in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. If you love manga style stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe the Buzz Play Manga. See you in the next chapter with more surprises.